research, lessons learned from students' contributions to online learning projects integrated into their curriculum. Okay.
Thank you very much. So, first of all, thank you for making it to the graveyard slot. I don't know if it says something about me that it's the second conference in 2 weeks in which I'm given the graveyard slot. But it's nice to see you here. You survived last night as well in the drink and the dancing. I saw lots of drink and dancing going on at that particular table. Right, I mean, this conference gave me a lot of food for thought. And each plenary gave me some ideas. But I was a bit challenged by one of them, actually a talk in particular, when Helm talked about traditional versus dialogic models. And our talk is all about kind of not agreeing with Helm on one point, which is politeness, teaching politeness, and cyber-pragmatics. Because we think even if you want to stimulate dialogue, you also need to learn the rules of engagement. So, can I give you a little quiz? Going back to Byron said global is associated with profit and with economy. And so when we were asked in our university, do we call ourselves an international university or a global one in the UK, what do you think the management went for after we said international? Have a guess. No? Global, of course. So this is our mission statement of our university. So we are a dynamic global enterprise university. We work in partnership with external organizations and engage with students as a community of practice. Now, the downfall is that we are economically driven. We, in the Byron scale, probably will hit 3 or possibly 4 in terms of what kind of university we are at Coventry. But on the other hand, it means there is a lot of support for what is called institutionally online international learning, OIL. And in fact, my colleagues from Israel tell me here they've actually met our international agent for that. So, also linked with Robert, who quoted Byron, we really want to have students who can confront and deal with prejudices and the things we've been hearing at the conference, so I'm not going to read that because we all know that. Now, what are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about a project which was financed by the Higher Education Academy in the UK. I was the project lead. At the same time, I was carrying out a project with Robert, which was Ariadna, and there are people in this room from Israel who were part of it, and Leon and Koblenz. And there's things in common. They're both Moodle supported. They were both task-based and assessed. Students were assessed in their tasks, more on a process base, because it was mainly lingua franca was being assessed, as opposed to tandem. And it was hybrid telecollaboration, which meant, yes, English was a lingua franca, but there were corners in the environment where students could be practicing tandem if they wanted to. And in fact, they did. And they also went out of the environment, they communicated via email, via blogs, they actually Skype, they actually went out of it as well. Now, of course, we all know what Robert is like by now in his German mode. So do you think the Tel Aviv, Coventry, Leon was structured or not? Answer?
Well, I'm an insider.
So you know how structured it was. So if you were doing this, the one with Robert, it was highly structured. There were very well-defined tasks. Students were told what to do. Students were given questionnaires to give to their partners to decide how to interact. I went for an organic magma. And I went for expert student moderation, which is quite a novel thing which we do at Coventry. We get expert students, whether master's students or undergraduates, who are really motivated, really critical to help other students, and we pay them. So instead of stacking shelves in a supermarket, they actually get paid to be research assistants. Of course, we all sing from this hymn sheet, which is Helm and Gath, and neither is here. I'm very sad about that. But anyway, we go there, even if I gather from what Helm was saying, we're moving towards more dialogic and more controversy than this harmony which started with Byron. However, what we're going to propose today, yes, we are here, but by the end of the talk, we're going to make some links in this table. If you don't know this table, it comes from telecollaboration to Gath and Helm, and it's a book, a must-have book if you don't have it. And it's available online if you have got students on a master's, very nicely. You don't need to have it, even have to have it in the library. Okay, I'm a reflective practitioner. I didn't used to be. Like Byron, I come from Bologna, the oldest university in the world, whatever people in Spain say. not Salamanca. So, sorry, can I just say, very traditional, I didn't know that reflection existed until I came here. I might have been a critical thinker, but definitely not reflective. So what we do reflection in action, reflection on action, and we, at the reconnaissance phase, when we realized, starting with English as a foreign language, how we are dictated things by course books. And these course books, which they use in Mexico, for example, they do not reflect what the learners want to learn at all. So our first driver into this was, what can we do in terms of action research to get something out of it, to input into telecollaboration, to make text and actions better for our students. Right, so organic magma, bubbles of students' experience, just very organic to begin with, but started by MA in English language teaching student to collect via NVivo, via W matrix. So we also did a bit of systemic functional linguistics on the language used, discourse analysis, what was happening, and we interviewed the students in Mexico and in England, what they wanted. And what happened in this process, it started as a language exchange. We were funded for a language tandem exchange, but then it gradually became intercultural, more than language. But then there was also language. And the students who were doing English in my university, we're talking about 300 plus students at Coventry involved. On Ariadna, correct me if I'm wrong, was around 200 amongst all the institutions, possibly more. What happened was that we started addressing this interest, and we were also comparing what was happening on the Mexican project with what was happening on the Ariadna project. And the students were doing both in Coventry, and so they were cross-fertilizing from one project to the other. And so what happened as well then, and for example, we realized that, again, the digital literate is a myth by Prince we don't believe in, we know that. So our expert students also realized, their colleagues didn't know how to use Prezi instead of PowerPoint, or Mahara, which is an e-portfolio which we used, but not as an e-portfolio, as a multimedia interactive, multimedia creation page area where students were collaborating to create learning objects together, which were assessed. And I'll show you what I mean. And so the students then, from the first year of the project, started feeding the information to the second year, and in the best case scenario, for example, if I just show you, I think I've got them here somewhere. So in the best case scenario, you will have evidence of telecollaboration, you will have something about Coventry, which is what the students agreed they would discuss, something about Mexico, which is what they agreed they would discuss. You would have a reflective journal in Mahara, which is all interactive. And then there was some freedom. The students decided they wanted to show the Mexicans photos, fine. And the cross-fertilization was also across the courses they were doing at Coventry, because these students had chosen as an option a photography course, which they can do at Coventry for employability reasons. So they're feeding the photos into the project. And it's so interesting this, that we then are now using this for publicity, because we are now seeing our university through the eyes of the projects. And what happens in terms of cross-fertilization as well, which we didn't expect, we didn't tell them to do this, they actually put here what they've done for Robert. So this was the brief for the Ariadna project, which was blogs, done with Blogger. And our students decided to do both projects and to feed what they've done in the Blogger into the other project. And this is the best case scenario, okay? How does the student moderator operate? Well, the student operator is a facilitator who will go in and moderate, and not like Solia perhaps, because we didn't do practical, it was not like the Solia one, because our students don't do the actual live Skype. They did outside it. We didn't record it. They did it, but we didn't record it. But what our moderator student did, this is the expert student, who is a second year student, paid to moderate and facilitate, who noticed that these students doing this project were covering a topic covered by another group in Mexico they were not in direct contact with. They opted for another topic. So he said, hey guys, have you noticed what the Mexicans have done here? It's really good. Have a look. So that's the role of the facilitator as well, to actually mediate and show. And of course, then you can also see the different take of students in Mexico on the same topics. We're now analysing all this. So a very rich environment. Okay, mamma mia, the time. Right. So, what we're proposing here, and I'm sorry, this is very unusual for me. I feel like the Italian TV, you've got half busts, called mezzi busti. I'm standing here in front of you, I never presented like this. I like to stand, but then I saw somebody else standing, it didn't look good, so I'm sitting. I don't like this. But anyway, can I just say, what we have devised at Coventry is this student-centred e-learning model, which is applied to a rather wide range of curricular actions in both English and languages. So the expert students talk to us and identify troublesome knowledge for other students, which they then help us to address via actions in actual research terms. And I'm not going to bore you with all the telecollaborative issues we've had with Mexico and also with Israel and also with other things we've done, because let me, in the plenary, I think we were all there, summarize them very well. So, however, there was one thing I wanted to dwell a bit more on, and I don't agree on Helm on this one, and I might not agree totally with the last plenary either on this one, because I think even if you are building controversy, you still need to negotiate. And I know that for sure because I'm a terrible intercultural person. That's why I'm learning all the time. I had a major intercultural accent in the bar yesterday. I won't tell you about that. It was really bad. It was my fault. But I actually had an accent yesterday, so I learn all the time. So Elwyn, can you just move on to what's happened here? This is when it doesn't work very well.
Yeah, okay, so to focus in on a failure, which as Marie-Noël pointed out, we're very good at doing. Here's an example of a failure. It was on.
Sorry. That's me interculturally deficient.
Another critical incident, Lloyd on stage. Can you hear me there in the background? Okay. So this incident revolved around a misunderstanding between the students in Coventry and the students in Mexico over what culture really meant. For the students in Mexico, it seemed they seemed to be more interested in the archaeology, the history, the sort of high cultural aspects, if you like. And the student at Coventry was asking for information about Mexican culture. So the student from Mexico gave some information about the archaeological sites, the cuisine, etc. And the student at Coventry said, no, I mean the things you like to do at the weekend. Where do you go for fun? Do you like football? Things like this. So there was a bit of a misunderstanding there over what culture actually meant for the two groups of students. Okay. So of course, bearing in mind that we wanted all of this to be student-driven, we consulted with our student moderator, the student that Marina was talking about, and we asked him to intervene and to give some tips to the students about these issues. And some of the points that our expert student, our student moderator, came up with, some of his thoughts on how to be an effective intercultural communicator. I summarised there. And most of it seems to be common sense sort of stuff, but sometimes the younger students need to be reminded of things like this. And politeness was something that came up now. I'm aware that politeness is becoming something of maybe a controversial topic in these discussions. I'm thinking about where we want students to go in terms of getting into discussions about conflict, etc. We don't really have much conflict between the UK and Mexico, but thinking about Jamil's plenary this morning, when we've got students from the Western world communicating with students from Muslim majority countries, then obviously some of those conversations are going to lead towards conflict.
There was some conflict that our students in Coventry, going also back to other things which have been said at this conference, that now we should go beyond generalisation and stereotyping. A lot of our students in Coventry are from Coventry or near Coventry in the UK, and they've never known a Mexican in their life, and they really think they like donkeys and they got sombreros, all of them. And then of course we are matched with Monterrey, which is the the richest part of Mexico, And, you know, they realize there are differences. However, we actually train them in intercultural awareness. We show them videos of how Hollywood represents Mexico, and how Hollywood manipulates our brain into thinking all Mexicans ride donkeys. And you look back at Riders of the Lost Ark by Spielberg. There are 4 nasty Mexicans the first 3 minutes. They're all nasty, and they're all wear sombreros, and they all look very bad. And then, of course, we tell them that the Mexican wanted concept is something you really don't do. But what happens is they go online and they write Mexicans wanted. And see, this is where we really still need to work with our students. So perhaps our students are less into, and what we find, the Romanian and Polish students with us are more aware of these things than the British students. So we also have intra-cultural matters, which are quite big in the UK. And in fact, these students proctors tend to be, this one is British, but we also have Romanian and Polish students who are much better intra-culture than the others. So what we are arguing is that perhaps intercultural, and we're going into calling it intercultural cyber-pragmatic community commons, quite a mouthful, ICCCCC. And so we are also arguing then that if we have identified this threshold concept, should we now address it? Should we ask students to help us scaffold activities for cyber-pragmatic competence? And, you know, you can also have the acceleration, but it does create stress. And students can be very stressed about being in telecollaboration in the UK. They really find they're challenged by it. And we have some students totally disengaging. Some students giving us the Coca-Cola advert with the lorry saying that was British culture. And we were, you know, wait a minute. So, you know, what we are thinking is, should we really systematically teach now a bit of cyber-pragmatics? And I'm conscious of the time, but it's a genre. And, you know, in whatever language you teach, it is a genre, it is an academic genre. And we keep handling it, but we keep ignoring, really, the rules of engagement at our own peril. And so, going back to Lamy and Goodfellow, both from the OU, we also have this literacy clash, because we have the multi-literacies, the multiple digital literacies, and we have this tension between, if you remember, those of us who are old enough, remember hypertext and Lando, and the text was a center, and we were all focused on centers, but now each person is a node, not the text. So the discourse has become individual. So the user is the node. And the user sees themselves, they see themselves as the node, which also means that not only they have to cope with all the digital literacies highlighted by Hafner-Chick and Jones quite recently in an article in TESOL, you know, we're asking our students to be coping with all that, but also with politeness, but also with intercultural difference and intercultural cyber-pragmatics. Quite a big ask, which is why, this is from the interviews.
So these comments from students that we got from a focus group show explicitly that they would have liked to have been taught how to communicate with the students of Mexico. So this reinforces our idea that this is something that we can do constructively to give them guidance on how to communicate with people from a culture that they have no familiarity with.
And not only that, Luis Ramos, who is actually from Spain and based in Barcelona, has written a very interesting book on cyber-pragmatics. And, you know, his argument as well, these students have a shorter concentration span and they see relevance in a different way from the way I used to see it. Because I come from a traditional university, I used to read a lot of books, so I didn't have a computer, imagine that. You know, I had to type my dissertation on an Olivetti machine. So what I'm saying is, they might really develop a reluctance to devote cognitive resources to stimuli that do not offer immediate reward or involve deferred relevance. And our students in the UK are very much like this with anything we do with them. They want to see immediate reward, immediate relevance. And interculturality is a long-term process. And so we have to really be out there with teaching these skills. So, over to Elwyn to finish.
Yeah, so lessons for us that came out of all of this and things that we've been discussing outside the project. The idea of the fact that we like to be guys on the side, but maybe we need to be a bit more proactive and come off the side a little bit more, maybe be more sages on the side, stepping in and helping students develop what we've started to call an online savoir-être, to quote Byron. Help them with their cyber-pragmatic competence, develop our own cyber-pragmatic competence as well, ICC, ICCC, and also to home in on differences in CMC from different language cultures. Back to you.
Is it me? No, it's you.
Oh, it's just jumped up. Okay, we've got to go quickly, obviously. So we came across this quote from a recent book by Sharifian and Jamarani, arguing that research into online politeness is relatively novel. So we've become interested in this aspect now. And going back to our student proctor, our moderator, we noticed in practically all of his posts, all of his exchanges, he manages to be tactful, to express generosity, activation, modesty, agreement. Thinking about Leach's politeness maxims from the 80s there. We think that this particular student is very good at empathy, so we would like to change that last maxim to empathy more than sympathy.
Yeah.
So basically what we're trying to do is to put things down in terms of guidelines for students to approach these intercultural encounters.
And empathy was the word which came out from the last winner as well. So, you know, the empathy of cyber-pragmatics is something we really need to think about. So we need to scaffold the introduction of online interaction and digital literacy. And I think it's one of the things we don't discuss much. And not only that, even amongst us, because I've had some serious misunderstandings with some of the colleagues, because we talk a different pedagogical language. So what is autonomy to me is not to them. I mean, I understand autonomy to be in a way which is completely different from the way a Mexican lecturer does. And this only came out the hard way. So I think we should talk about cyber-pragmatics not just for the students and the proctors, the mentors, but for us as well. And yes, you're next.
Sorry, not very well organised there. Well, I think the point on the slide sort of speaks for itself.
Yeah.
Really, so we're running out of time. So.
Yes, and you know, so going really back, I want to thank everybody, some of them are here, I want to thank all the people involved with MEX, so our students in particular, and the Ariadne teams as well, and Robert is not here, but thank you, but Robert has heard this before in June, some of it, that's probably why he's not here. But anyway, I'd like to thank them all, but just to finish, and I'll leave you with the thought of Guth and Helm, or Helm and Guth actually, because I always misquote them. We have, if you're interested in this, we did not give you, we were not giving you a handout for the simple reason that I never deliver what I thought I would deliver after I heard all the other talks. So poor Elwyn is a bit puzzled because I changed this overnight. And I'm very naughty in that way. But I am reflecting in action on action. So if you look at this, what I like to argue is that we need to make more linkages. And I don't want to put all the ICT in one corner and all the cyber-pragmatics in the other in the couch. I think they are all more interconnected than this. Which I think is what Helm is getting to as well, which she talked about now, traditional and dialogic. So we have to have a dialogue amongst these categories as well. So we need to change the model a bit. I'll leave it to Helm because she got her PhD now, so she will publish the next book and we'll buy another one. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for a very interesting presentation. Okay, questions?
Very, very interesting. Well, first of all, I hope we are going to have a chance to read everybody else's presentation again, and there's so much in it. You must be very proud. How long have you been doing this now? How many years?
True. But
Only?
I'm an old...
Yeah,
I've been in calls since the BBC Micros with the little black screen. I've been there. In fact, at the recent conference, I've already said, he said, I'm from Coventry. Oh, that's where that place where the Marina Orsini is. She's been doing this stuff forever. And I said, well, 29 and a half years, and that's me. But anyway, yes, I've been in e-learning for a long time. And teacher
but
training.
only 2 years, this.
Yeah,
this
well,
shape.
yes. I mean, I played with it a bit before. I've been playing with colleagues. But actually doing it directly myself, not long. But I got very strong beliefs since I applied.
You did questionnaires asking them, anonymous questionnaires, how they felt about it, and were they very enthusiastic about their learning?
Well, we triangulated. There were SurveyMonkey questionnaires, which incidentally we can't use anymore because apparently SurveyMonkey doesn't protect the identity of the people if you ask for personal data. So we're now going for Bristol Online, another questionnaire. But we did used to use SurveyMonkey anonymously, both Mexicans and English. Then we also triangulated seeing groups of students in focus groups where we were face-to-face, but they were obviously anonymously reported. And the British students who came were actually one said, Marina, this is like wading through treacle. It was like wading through treacle. I did not understand what you were on about. But now that we've done the project, I can see the relevance. I can see what I'm learning. I understand it's important. And he said, Marina, can you teach this business of teach us more, make it more? And we try our best. We've got a module which is 10 credits. It's assessed. And some students are still, this idea of the threshold, some students don't get them. They can be liminal. They can even finish a degree without understanding interculturality. We have to be realistic here. It's a long-term process. So I'll be honest with you, a minority of students in the first year, because we do this in the first year with our students, get it. But those are the ones who become proctors and train other students and help us. But it is quite a tough environment in the UK, particularly now with these very big articles about Romanians being nasty and stealing jobs, and Bulgarians being nasty and stealing jobs. There is quite a strong anti-multicultural narrative in the newspapers in the UK at the moment. As you probably know, because you live in Ireland, so you probably see some of it. So, it is important for us to really open up new ways. Also, can I also add one little thing, because this will be 6,000 papers, we've got so much data now. But there's also the social justice aspect of our mentor student is disabled. He can't travel. So he's now become the expert online, but he's a person who cannot travel because he's got a disability and he can't walk much. For that reason, there's this added social justice advantage of telecollaboration, which has not been mentioned much at this conference, I must say. I'm not that much about that. Yeah, she wants another question.
It's okay with others. About this idea, I think we all have the same difficulty with that. How many guidelines do we give? I don't give guidelines per se. I give a structure for the last 9 years, because for me it's all about the process. And in your case, if at the end of the day they ask you for more, you are a winner. You are doing what Vygotsky said. Just create the question. The best teaching is to a questioning. They are asking you for more because they went through that process. You understand what I'm saying? They are at the stage of questioning. Now, one can criticize that and say you could have speed up the process. I don't know. The other way you could have done is to introduce different type of involvement with technologies. Not that, but other. In other words, you produce a bit of training rather than guidelines. No, that's it.
No, you're right. You need to guide, and we've decided we're going to be more guiding on this side, particularly with first-year students. And we're going to try with the masters now. We want to go into training the master students as well on this. We find the motivation is stronger in tandem situations, though. Work on motivation, if you're doing French, English, the motivation is more there, even the cultura. Every time we use cultura, and we actually put cultura in Google, because cultura was very much word and paper. We actually put it in Google Plus, and the students went into cultura and they could see the results electronically. So we turned cultura into electronic format and given the bilingual English. So we gave the bilingual Spanish-English version to students studying literature as well. And now, as a result, some of those students are studying Spanish on the university-wide provision. It's kind of cross-fertilization always. Yeah, sorry.
Yes. I love the idea of getting the master students involved as moderators. And I'd like to do that with my ESOL students. So could you give me a little bit more information about...
Well, you need to have the expert students. And I must say...
So what kind of training do they get, or particular background, or after certain courses, or embedded in certain courses?
Well, they become part of us. They come to meetings with us. So, for example, the Mexican project, the master student involved became part of a member of staff. The same happened with the second year undergraduates, because that student I was showing you moderating is a second year undergraduate.